Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Man, today, well, we're bringing another David on board, so I don't know how if that's gonna, there's that old song, right? What was it? The New Kids on the, no, it wasn't the New Kids on the Block. It was, I Know a Dave, right? So this is another Dave I know. Today's Dave is going to teach us about, the one-page wealth compass. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but he has such interesting stories, and I'm going to let him tell it because, he's an amazing person. Amazon bestseller. You know, he really tops the charts in so many different ways, and he has an incredible story. So let's hit it all off. How are you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your program.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I saw your profile and I was like, man, this is somebody who I definitely want to speak to because I resonate with your story. Personally, 30-year corporate career, got the golden handshake, no qualms about it. But what do I do at 55? And well, now 57, but so what do you do?
Yeah.
Sounds like there are people out there. You want to hear about people like yourself who took that handshake or maybe pat on the back or push out the door.
Or kick
Um,
in the pants.
yeah, and then but also succeeded because of it. That's what I really want us to talk about. But why don't you explain to everybody who you are, what you do, and part of your story?
Sure. Well, I have never had the intention of being an author. I wasn't planning on writing a book or anything like that. But life just threw me into a situation that I just had to share it because it was just so, wow, different. I'd like to just maybe just give you a little background on what
Sure.
happened. When I was 63, I just got fired after 18 years with the same company. I tell you, I did the math, Dave, and it was brutal. If we
Mhm.
drained all of our savings and all of our retirement, we were scheduled to be broke by 65. At this point,
Mm.
I'm thinking, who is going to hire me at my age? But that wasn't even the hardest part. The hardest part was driving home thinking, how am I going to tell my wife Mary? We had been married for 30 years at that point, and she did not deserve the mess I just threw her life into. So, anyways, I start looking for a job. My heart wasn't in it. I did not want to go back to the corporate world. That's the last
Mm.
place I want to be. But I had to put food on the table. I had to keep a roof over my head. I didn't have an option and the luxury of not doing that. So I started interviewing, and I could tell the people I was interviewing, they didn't say it in so many words, but basically they meant this. They goes, no, no, David, the company that fired you, they did the right thing because you're no value to us either. You're pretty much a washed up 63-year-old. I mean, they were polite about it, but that was if I could even get them to interview me, that was the thing. I hardly got any interviews because they didn't want to talk to me. So, anyways,
That's
I
the part that
decided,
I have to say. That's the
sure.
part that I feel like, oh my God. After, again, I spent 30 years in a career. I had one day I'm working with all these partners in the legal field, and the next day when I saw openings at their positions, I didn't even get an interview. I'm like, what
Yeah.
is this? And, when I started talking to people, and the first time in my life I went to unemployment, and they go, oh yeah, it's gonna be hard for you. You're at that age. At that
Yeah.
age, I was 55. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I consider you a baby right now at 57. So, because I'm 72, so you're such a kid. But anyways, so what happened was no one hired me, so I had to take a huge risk. I mean, I had no other option. I decided to start my own company. I went to work as an independent sales agent on straight commission, no salary, no safety net, no benefits. The first months were absolutely brutal. Cold calls, constant rejection, rookie mistakes. I heard so much rejection in that period of my life that I think I ever had. But Dave, looking back on it, I can reflect on it now and appreciate what was happening. I honestly believe all that resistance, all that rejection I was getting was necessary to build the mental muscles I needed to punch through that dark period of my life. After 10 months of grinding, and I do mean grinding, I hit an incredible milestone. I was suddenly making more money than my good paying 6 figure corporate salary. And for a very brief moment, Dave, I felt like we made it. But then I realized we didn't make nothing because I've been making good money for almost 40 years. And look where it got me on the verge of financial collapse. I said, I need to know more than how to make good money. I need to know how to invest. I need to know how to build wealth because obviously I didn't have a clue if you look at my record. And so I decided I didn't have time for a bunch of investment theories and people on commissions trying to get their cut. And so I decided to dive in myself. I read 21 books on personal finance, listened to 13 podcasts consistently, read blogs, newsletters. Every time I had a good idea, I'd write it down. I write it down. Then I kept refining it and refining it till I got it down to one piece of paper. I needed a set it and forget it approach because I was trying to get my company going. I couldn't waste time with Wall Street and watch that all the time. So I needed a system that I could just operate on its own. Basically, after 6 years, I hit what I thought was impossible. From terrified of being broke, and I do mean terrified,
Mhm.
to a seven-figure portfolio and real financial freedom. Dave, I now know it is never too late to rewrite your story. Because if I can pull that off starting as late as 63, I believe anybody can with the right direction.
Yeah, I can't imagine that, at 63. I know how I'm, personally, how I feel. And you're like, all right, do I have enough, month at the end of the money for at the end of the month or a month, and the same thing is going forward. Like right now I'm okay. But unexpectedly, 2 months ago, I had a situation where I had to get a stent put in, and they were like, didn't know. I knew I was overweight. It wasn't a secret, but you don't know. And those little left turns that really you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and you also have to be prepared. So you started building it and reading and investing and turning it into this one-page wealth compass. Tell us a little bit about that for
But,
for
but,
everybody. Yeah.
sure. But before the wealth page compass came about,
Sure.
can I just share you what made it all come about? When
Of
I
course.
was when I was in the dark period there, I heard a true story that really changed everything for me. I'll just share briefly. Scientists at the Max Planck Institute did an experiment. What they did is they placed people in the center of a dense German forest and told them to walk in a straight line to the edge. Now, these were confident, capable people, but when the clouds covered the sun and they lost their point of reference, the GPS tracking they were wearing showed they were gradually starting to walk in circular motions. Some of them were ending up right back where they began, and yet each and every one of them was absolutely convinced they were walking in a perfectly straight line the entire time. Dave,
Mm.
that is my life story for 40 years. Working hard, make good money, doing what I thought was right when it comes to investing and building wealth, but literally just walking in circles. And that moment, I said to myself, that's what I need, a compass, but not a metal compass like traveler shoes. I needed a one-page compass to keep me on the straight road to success here because I, be honest, I'm the kind of person I get distracted easy. Shiny object, hot tip,
Yep.
I'm off to the races in the wrong direction. And I didn't have the runway to make those kind of mistakes anymore. My runway was more like a helicopter pad than a runway. I couldn't do that anymore. And so I needed something that gave me that 30,000-foot view to keep me on the straight path. And that's when I said, I've got to build a compass myself because no one's going to do it for me. And I have to do this to understand this. And that's how it all came about. And once I did that, I mean, clarity, calmness, direction, things just started to fall into place. And things were happening quicker than I thought they would ever be able to be possible to do.
Well, isn't it powerful when you get your clarity
Yeah.
and your purpose aligned? I talk about that all the time because that's what I help people do with, their messaging and, really align with yourself. A lot of people go, well, people at work shouldn't know how I think. I'm like, well, no, they should. And everybody should know how you think. Now, be respectful and everything, but the alignment, when things are aligned, more power comes to you.
Yep.
What did that alignment, once you were able to investigate, external, but also a lot of internal stuff, how did that work out?
Well, let me just show you if I could, because I'm
Yeah,
going to give
sure.
this to all your listeners for free. So I'm not pitching anything here. This is the actual compass. Okay. This is my actual one page. It's a one-page PDF. They can get downloaded for free at my website. But basically, what it is on the one side, it's the 9 trail markers, and it tells you where you're at. You'll know the number you're at when you read them, and then how to get from where you're at to real financial freedom. Okay. And then the second part, the second column is the 5 North Star principles. This is like the mental guardrails that keep you out of going in the gutter and getting off track, that kind of thing. The first one, for example, is live on less than you earn. If you don't get that down, anything else I or anyone else says about finance is worthless because you'll never get ahead if you don't have that cushion
Sure.
of the difference. Okay, but that's the kind of thing that really helped me see clarity. And then and a lot of people like, for example, a lot of the books they don't. When I read those 21 books, none of them really covered career and income success. I guess they just thought, well, if you're reading an investment book, you must have a good income and career, or you wouldn't be reading it. Well, that's not true. A lot of people are underemployed, underappreciated, undervalued at their job. and they're not making the money they really should or need to be making. And so that's why I made it the number one point. And my first two chapters are all about that, because the one thing I was good at most of my life is making well above average income. Terrible at investing, but really good at well above average. And so then some people might say, well, I'm okay on the career, but David, I'm in debt. I'm in a really serious credit card debt. Well, that's number three. So you're going to start at number three, and that's where you're going to pick the deal up. Now, some people say, well, David, but wait a minute. Credit card, it's nice to get out of debt. And you have a couple sentences here, but I need more than that. Well, that's where the book comes in. This is like the 30,000 foot view, and this is the ground game. It says right here, go to chapter 4 in the book. So you go to chapter 4, and it gives you the detailed ground game of how to get out of debt, different ways for your personality, different levels of debt you might be in, and it really gives you the step-by-step guide on how to do it. This tells you to take a right at the light, take a left at the stop sign. Well, this is like you're in the jet plane, you're going 30,000 feet looking down, okay? But both are important. And when you have them to combine, David, you've got a kind of financial clarity that very few people ever get in life. Um, and that I never had in life until these two came together for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, sure. It makes a lot of sense. So that's one of the questions that I have when we start talking about, these pivots in life. A lot of times the biggest challenges is because you hadn't thought about it, right? I get to a time, right? I mean, I remember this advice, man, and I hate keep using it, but it's so true. I got it when I was 18. Boy, in a blink of an eye, you're going to be 60. I'm not 60 yet, but man, I'm real close to that blink. And, it was somebody at a bowling alley. It wasn't even a family member who gave me that advice. And it really is true. Life goes by so quickly that we don't spend time. We're raising our kids. We're living life, and we don't always think about that vision. What happens when you get to that point, right? You get to, you know, that aspect either because corporate said, thank you very much, close the door. You can work here, you can come to work, but we're not paying you anymore. So, it's one of those things. How do you win when, I guess, or how do you move forward when the retirement math looks impossible?
Yeah, that's a really powerful question, Dave, because even people who've reached financial independence, they really struggle, most people, with retirement. I have a thing I call FIGNA, financial independence, graduate to the next adventure. And for me, that's my mission in life. I don't ever want to retire. I want to keep graduating to the next adventure. I'm having too much fun in life. I don't want to.
Sure.
I mean, I've heard so many stories and done a lot of research on people who retire, and the depression rate goes up, the mortality rate goes up, the lack of mobility rate,
Mhm.
is worse. I mean, there's just so many things happening because, they used to have a job where it created structure in your life and activity and actions. Well, you don't have anymore. You only can go on vacation for so long. I mean, then it's an emptiness. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
what is this? What life's about? I'm not saying fun and vacations aren't good. They're very good to have, but that's the dessert of life. That's not the appetizer, the salad, and the entree. If you had nothing but dessert for all four things, you get pretty sick of
Right. Yeah, and
yourself
you,
in
you
life.
need you need protein, right? You got to
Yeah,
do something.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
and really, as somebody who even in corporate America, I was traveling a lot at one point. Who wants to just be in hotels, right? The idea,
Oh
not saying
yeah.
that you want to sit on a couch. I don't, that's why there has to be a plan. So,
Yep.
even if you chose retirement, there has to be a plan of what you're going to do with it. I used to
Exactly.
joke because every couple of years they always had a downsize. I'm like, I already know what I want to do. I just have to find people to pay me to do it or have the ability to, give me my time. I mean, that's really what
Yeah.
it is. Is
Yep.
now. That's why I'm busier now when I'm out of work than I was when I was working.
Well, you make such an important point, Dave, because that's why I call it FIGNA. Financial independence is the
Mhm.
first graduate to next adventure. Because if you are not financially independent and you're dependent on, you got to get out there and make money, that kind of thing. Well, that's a real restriction when you're older in life. You want to have that freedom, and that's why I put it in the whole. That's why I'm just saying here's the compass for life. No, it's the compass for financial independence because once you get that in place, then you have choices. You have lots of choices when you're. It doesn't matter if you're in your 20s or 60s. You've got choices. When you don't have choices and you have to be chained to a job just to make ends meet, that's not. I don't think what people are looking for. At least that's not what I was looking for for any of
Yeah,
these.
no, 100%. I think that's what we have to kind of teach them and teach ourselves. The society, you know, we're real good about talking about, marriage at the beginning or relationships. but we're less good about that retirement piece, right? Everybody retires
Yeah,
differently, what their goals are, and that's why because it's so personalized,
yeah,
you have to sit down and think about it, or when it comes up to it, you just get hit in the face. Even
yeah,
even when and they're becoming less and less, even when you're in a job that has a pension,
yeah,
and most of us aren't, and pensions are
yeah.
not as powerful as they
They
had
used to
been,
be.
right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's a whole load of stuff. That's where I think the challenge is. What would you suggest to somebody, let's say in their 40s or 50s, who, are getting closer, right? 40,
Yeah.
not early for 40s, but like mid to late, when you start to think about those things.
Well, let me tell you, Dave, the more specifics of how I gained financial independence, because I think that might help your listeners a lot,
Sure.
because that's the one common denominator. Everyone, we all want to be financially independent, whether we want to vacation the rest of our life or we want to do something that's a passion or a combination. The one thing we need is financial independence. So, one of the things I did was I doubled my portfolio 3 times in a 6 year period. Now,
Mm.
people say, David, that's not possible. The market didn't go up that much. You're either a liar or delusional. Well, I'm neither. Let me share with you. I wasn't chasing crypto, trying to time the market or day trading. I promise you. I was doing the opposite of that. I was doing something so boring it put you to sleep. And here's the crazy thing, Dave. When the market was down, I was thrilled. When other people were panicking and selling, I was buying more shares at discount prices. My only regret was the market wasn't down more during that 6 year period because I'd even done better than that. But what really surprised me was the math. There's a thing called the rule of 72. And what it says is if you're getting, just say, a 10% return on your money, it works for any percent, but let's say 10%, your money will double every 7.2 years or roughly every 86 months. Once I
Mhm.
got my compass in place, Dave, my first double wasn't 86 months. It occurred in just 30 months. My second one, 13 months. My third one, 29 months for an average of 24 months, way less than half the expected 86-month time period. But the secret wasn't the returns. I was doing three things, David. I finally figured out after 40 years that I didn't know for the first 40 years. The first thing was I was taking money right off the top and putting it aside
Mm.
when I first got paid. I pay myself once a month, and that money is out of my account within a matter of an hour and is off to the side. The second thing I was doing was taking that money now and investing in the right kind of investments. Dave, my investment plan is so incredibly simple. I'm only involved in two things. I have two what they call index funds. That's all I have. The first one is the total US market. I literally own every publicly traded stock in the United States. My second fund is international. I literally own every publicly traded stock outside the United States. So, David, reality, I own every publicly traded stock on the planet. For me to go to zero, for me to go broke, the entire world economic system would have to go to nothing. And if that happens, we got bigger problems than money.
Sure.
Okay, and so so I feel I can sleep really good at night when I sleep. My third and final thing I want to mention here is market volatility. I learned to use it to work for me instead of against me. So many people they buy high and sell low, which is the opposite of what you want because they're using their emotions to invest instead of truth and knowledge. Okay, and so once I figured out the market, I stopped doing that. Okay, and that wasn't something that was difficult once you got it because it's here's the thing. Picture yourself going to a department store and they have a big sign, 50% off sale. Would you ever go up to the clerk and say, hey, I don't want no 50% off. You tell me when it's going back to full retail. I only buy things at retail price. You would never do that. They'd call you crazy, okay? But people do it in the market all the time. The market crashes 50%. Oh my gosh, I got to get out. I got to get my money in cash. This is too dangerous. No, that's when you want to buy because everything's on sale, half off. When the market recovers, and it always does, we have a 200-year history of the market. Every time it went down, and not only fully recovered, it went on to new heights. So 2 years of data is good enough for me, 200 years, excuse me, of data is good enough for me to feel very comfortable that my money is going to be fine. And so I ended the cycle of buying high and selling low. And what it enabled me to do, Dave, is build my wealth twice as fast. And here's the important part with half the risk compared to how I was doing it and how so many people are doing it. And that really made all the difference for me.
Yeah, no, once you can kind of mitigate some of that the risks and things
Yep.
like that, that it becomes because I mean, there's so many people who have to work extra years because they never calculate that, that plan. How does somebody figure out that plan?
Of when they have enough
When,
money to retire.
yeah, yeah, because of, they sometimes, and look, my friend, he passed away at 55. We don't know what those numbers are.
Yep.
Unexpectedly, nothing happened, and we hear stories. I mean, I gotta say, I'm at that age
Yeah.
where you're hearing it more and more. Man, I have this, and I just heard, this one. In fact, next Sunday I'm going to a memorial service for a guy I went, grew up with, who lived in my apartment building. So, you don't know when that end number is, but how do you plan so you can calculate what that freedom number is, I guess,
Perfect.
using your language?
Yes, exactly. And let me explain how. And I have much more detail in my book, but I can just tell your people, I don't have to even buy the book or nothing. First of all, you want to identify what you need a year to live. Let's just say it's $100,000 for a round number. Okay.
Right.
Yours may be less, yours may be more. And different people who live in Wyoming and people who live in New York City, it's just going to be different. Okay. Because the cost of living is different and that kind of thing. But let's just say it's 100,000 for this number. Okay. Then you want to subtract any guaranteed income like Social Security, pension, annuities, whatever it is. Let's just say you have a $24,000 a year Social Security. So the difference in those two numbers is $76,000. Okay. Now
Mhm.
you want to divide that by 5% or whatever your withdrawal rate is. Okay. Let's just say 5%. That's $1.5 million. So when you get $1.5 million in your account, in your portfolio, you know you have enough to retire comfortably on $100,000 for the rest of your life. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Curtis, I talk about, 60-year-old mechanical drafter. He did the calculation at age 60. He figured he needed $1.4 million to retire. When he looked at his investment accounts and his retirement, 401ks, all that kind, it totaled $2.4 million, $1 million above what he needed. He could have retired years ago and didn't even realize it. I'm not saying he should have retired years ago, but wouldn't it be nice to know I could if I wanted to?
Right.
That's kind of a nice feeling. It's kind of hard to cross the finish line when you don't know where the finish line is. And a simple calculation like that can tell you where the finish line is so you can know where you're going and know when the end is.
Well, so I want to just ask you, and none of this, I just want to make sure everybody knows this is not financial advice. This
No,
is, this is
no,
just conversational. Get your financial advisor,
yeah,
to sit with you. But that's where you read so many different articles about it, and what's the magic number? It used to be, $1 million and this and that, and
yeah,
it depends on how long you're going to live. That's
yeah,
to me, that's the variable, right?
yeah.
If I'm dying at the end of the year, I can spend a lot differently than if I'm going to be dying in, 20, 30, 40 years.
That's part of it. But if you set it up right, Dave, your portfolio can grow during the withdrawal years
Right.
too, and that's not that difficult to do. And so if you understand it, you don't have to worry about it whether you die at 55 or 105. You can be just fine with the right formula, and it's not complicated. This is not complicated. I promise you. I wrote this book for people who are not Wall Street people, for people who want, hey, break it down in simple terms. And I filled it with all kinds of stories, of real life stories of people who succeeded and failed. So it makes it I get it now, David. Finally, someone's explaining to me in real terms.
Right. And that's what I was trying to bring out is that, this is for real terms, for real people, and but you have to be active in it. It's like anything
Yep.
else. We could read all the books we want, but if you're not active in paying attention, because we all hear those stories also about all the wealthy people, either ball players or anything like that, who how do you stay wealthy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Let me address that because that's so. I'm sure there's listeners you have, even non-listeners, who are saying, David, that's nice, but if I made the kind of money you make, or I made the kind of money David made, I could do investing, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck, buddy. I don't really have the funds to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, that's a lie. And let me explain why I say it's a lie. And it goes along with what you were just saying, David. The average NBA player makes over $10 million a year. I didn't say $10 million in his lifetime career. I said in 1 year. And yet, after 5 years of retirement, 60% of them are broke, according to the Netflix documentary Broke. And the NFL is even worse. After only 2 years of retirements, 78% of them are either bankrupt or in serious financial stress. That's according to Sports Illustrated. Now, compare that to Dale Schroeder, a basketball loving carpenter who made average to below average income his entire life, yet he chose to live on less than he earned, okay, and invest the difference wisely. He ended up with a $3 million portfolio. Dave, that's more than most of the NBA and most of the NFL players made with their tens of millions of dollars of income. And that's why I say it's a lie that you don't make enough money. One of the things I found out what made my compass was this: making money is different than building wealth. Those pro athletes, they were masters at making money. I mean, how many people do you know make over $10 million a year? But yet most of them, not all of them, most of them were lousy at building wealth. Dale Schroeder, on the other hand, he was the reverse. Not that great at making money, let's be honest, but he was a master at building wealth. And I'm not pointing fingers, Dave, because for 40 years, I was really good at making money and I was lousy at building wealth. Once I understood it, once I got the compass, I accomplished more in terms of wealth building in 6 years than I had in the previous 40 years. And that's what clarity is all about, I believe, and the importance of it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to have the clarity and the plan and this, this one page, what the compass. I mean, it really does sound like it answers a lot of the questions because, that all the things that you're telling me that I'm hearing and I've looked at, I have checked online. It just it seems very simple. How did so you had a corporate career, but how did you know how to write simple, right? A lot of times the challenge is a lot of executives don't know how to speak to their people, right? Part of leadership is to communicate. You seem to communicate it really, really well and are very
Well,
passionate about it.
well, let me tell you why I talk more like the average person and not the elite. My wife, when she was a youth, they did an IQ test on her, and she scored 1 point shy of genius category. I, on the other hand, David, failed the second grade. So I always say, when you combine the two of us, we make one average intelligent person. Okay. And so I don't write like a sophisticated intellect or a Wall Street executive because I'm not that person. I am an average guy. I really am. But once you understand how simple this is, it's not complicated, all of a sudden you have a clarity and a calmness that is amazing. And let me say one thing about this. Wall Street loves complexity, but the truth is simplicity is for winners. Complexity is for victims. And there are too many victims out there, average consumers, that get sucked into Wall Street's complexity when it's not that complicated. It's in their best interest to make it complicated. So you need them. You don't need them. Most people, some people do, but not most people do not need them.
Yeah. Well, why don't we need them? I know the complexity part. I agree. It is complex and you don't know, people don't know it, and we can be misled very easily, right? I mean, that's where a lot of things, but how do you, what would you suggest for people to be proactive in knowing and managing their wealth?
Well, one thing is to understand the numbers, and they're basic. David, you don't have to know geometry or algebra or trigonometry, okay? Or I wouldn't be here right now. Basic arithmetic we're talking about. We're talking about like grade school level arithmetic. That's all you need to understand. And let me give you an example of the biggest financial mistake most people make, and it goes along with what we're talking about with planners, things like that. People are quietly paying these little termite-sized fees. They don't even notice them until they make termite-like destruction on their portfolios. Let me give you an
Mm.
example specifically. You got two people, A and B, both 25 years old, both going to work to 65. Both decide right up front they're going to put $25 a week away for investing for the future. Okay, it's pretty modest, $25 a week. Okay, well, person A puts them in a low-cost index fund with a 0.03% annual management fee. Person B hires an advisor who charges a full 1%, which is standard, and they put them in an actively managed fund with a 5.75 upfront load and a 0.66% ongoing management fee. Okay, let's fast forward 40 years now. Both put in the same amount of money over the same period of time. Person A has a $1 million portfolio. Person B has a $570,000 portfolio. That's a $430,000 difference, Dave. Same market returns, same contributions, same period of time. The only difference was the fees. And the thing is, we didn't even factor in raises. If we assume they got the normal raises, that $430 difference could be easily over $1 million difference. Okay. Now, here's the saddest part of that story. Person B probably feels like he got great service from his advisor. He was a nice guy, went out to lunch a couple of times with him, knows his kids' names. Little did he realize he did the equivalent of funding someone else's retirement with half of his own money. And David, I am embarrassed to say this to you, but for 40 years, I never questioned fees. I just thought they were the rules of the game you had to pay. But once I made my compass, I realized the fees we don't question can cost us the most. In person B's case, it cost him $430,000. That's a pretty big hit to take in your retirement portfolio, at least in my book, at
Sure.
least.
No, 100%. Think about it again, where your numbers are and what that cost you over the course of your life, and especially at the end when you become less income earning as as a general rule.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And can I address one more issue too? A
Sure.
lot of people they think, oh, financial books put me to sleep. I'll read it before I go to bed because it'll put me to sleep. Well, I agree. All the 21 I read were pretty darn boring and dry. I will, but that's when I made a commitment. I am not going to write this for the Wall Street person. I'm going to write this for the average person. Fill the stories as I mentioned. I want to just read a short review I got on Amazon from one of the people because I think it really illustrates the point of what I'm talking about here. This is from a clinical psychologist with 25 years experience, no financial background whatsoever, Dave. He was facing his own career crisis and said the one-page compass gave him the exact financial hope and practical steps he needed. But here's the important part of the quote. He says, I couldn't put the book down. That was the goal. It's more like a storybook than it is a financial book, but it gives you all the financial information that mixed in with the stories beautifully. Okay, it's not written for the boring Wall Street dry book. I promise you, it's the opposite of that. That was really important to me to make the book for the average person.
Well, what motivated you to write the book? I mean, obviously you were in this situation,
Yeah,
and I'd love to know,
sure.
it's more than just, hey, I have some information.
Right. No, no. This is not about money. I have a company, my agency that I talked about earlier, and my son has joined me since then. Last year we had a record year. I'm making, and I'm not saying this to brag or anything. I'm just to put it in perspective. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life, X like five or something like that. Okay, but here's the point I want to mention is when I was in that dark period of my life, and I was handed a lifeline in terms of the inspiration for this compass. I really feel it would be the ultimate in selfishness, Dave, to keep it to myself. I mean, I've done well with it, but why can't I share this with the people? This is not a money mission for me. I promise you, the books on Amazon are making. I mean, I'm selling a lot
Right.
of them. I'm getting great reviews. Those things I love, but it's not a money thing. Okay, I'm sure I'll lose money this year on those, which is fine. It's my contribution to my passion project because I'm fine with my company and I'm fine with my income and my portfolio is big enough. I could have retired a year or two ago and easily been comfortable. But I think sometimes, Dave, it's more than just what do we get out of life. It's what can we give? What can we contribute? What can we leave a legacy or something like that? And that was pretty important to me. And that's why I wrote the book, not to be an author, not to be famous, not to be anything, just to help people who are, so they don't end up at 63 like I was on the verge of financial collapse. That's the biggest reason, I think.
Yeah, no, and that's what I felt. I felt, your motivation. I mean, you clearly said, I mean, look, you have the page out there. We'll put that in the show
Yeah,
notes, for
free.
the one page compass. It
Yeah,
doesn't say you have to buy the book. It doesn't say
no,
anything.
no,
You're giving them the compass. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I do when I work with clients. I'm like, I'll give you the compass, but I call it the roadmap, but
okay, sure. Yeah,
same
same thing.
thing
Yeah,
is I'll
exactly.
give you what you have to do. You need a little bit more guidance. So you
Yeah,
do need I guess the legend, if we're going to, continue
yeah,
those map, and the legend really becomes how you interpret the guidebook. Because if you know you're a certain level, you know where you are, but it's all about this activity that you need to take and move forward and really understand it all, because that's the part that we're all scared. We don't want to do it. I wasn't good at math in high school, all the stories that we tell ourselves. But at some point, things are going to get more complicated, healthcare and all that
uh,
stuff. But if we can take some of that variable outside of ourselves, that's where this is definitely an area where we can kind of grab the bull by the horns
yeah.
and learn what we need to do.
And it will be in your show notes, but I just want to say it in case whatever. It's onepagewealthcompass.com/free. If any of your listeners go there, they can download this one page compass. Start look at it for yourself. Review it for yourself. See where you're at. See where you want to get to be for financial freedom. And it's like I say, it's all there. It's all free. Can I tell you one more thing? One of the things I did in life, which I regret tremendously is I kept procrastinating the wealth building part of my life. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I figured, oh my gosh, that's so far from now. When I was in my 40s, I go, okay, it's coming soon, but I'm coming. But I still got a little time. In my 50s, I go, okay, I'm going to do it, but I would, okay, not this year though, because whatever. And I missed out on 401k matches and things like that. Just
Mhm.
crazy, crazy things. And then I realized, man, if I had just done what I should have done, I would have been 63 and I would have been completely financially independent. I don't have to worry about it. But the funny thing is, I am grateful this happened to me, and I am so grateful I got fired. I should send them a gift basket and thank you note for firing me, because if I hadn't been put in this position, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I have so much freedom. I have so much independence. I have so much happiness and so much excitement about getting up in the morning. And so that was the greatest gift they ever gave me. But I want to talk back about procrastinating. I want to share with a couple of things from the National Council on Aging, because this is for everyone to understand. This is real numbers, not any hype or advertisement thing. 80% of older adults are facing financial insecurity. If I didn't say 20% or 40 or even 50%, I said 80. That's most of the adult population in our society here. Okay. 50% of people 60 years plus do not have sufficient income for their basic needs. I'm talking housing, food, and health care. You've heard the stories, people have to decide medication or food or medication or rent. It's terrible. 50%, that's half the adult population.
And I
And
think that that's one of the areas truthfully, that's the part that scares me, right?
yeah,
There's so many people who are going to be worse because I know not everybody's been in the situation I've been in,
yeah,
and that's where the rest of the country, what are we going to do?
yeah.
Uh,
Let me tell you one more too, because this is so. Number one cause for gut wrenching stress among seniors is the fear of running out of money due to having to save too little for their retirement. Most of these people, Dave, worked 40 years of their life
mhm.
working hard, good employees, helping make their employers wealthy, but they forgot one little thing to make themselves wealthy along the way. Okay, and that's why I say, and that's why I'm giving it for free. Please get the One Page Wealth Compass, download it at onepagewealthcompass.com/free, because there's nothing in this for me. I'm getting nothing. This is what took me from 63 to 69, from nearly broke to a millionaire. And I want to say one more thing, David, because it's important. I am not claiming everybody who takes the compass is going to be a millionaire in 6 years. I would be a liar and a cheat and a thief if I said that. But what I can say with honesty and integrity, you will be in a better financial situation in 6 years or in 5 years or 4 years than you are today. And isn't that what's really important? I don't think it's important like how many millions you got and how many millions that person got. It was, are you comfortable financially? Can you retire with dignity? Can you do the things you really want to do in life? And if you get that point, and that's what I think it's all about, don't you? Yeah.
100%. It's the dignity and having the control, right? That's part of it is when we were in corporate America, when you're working, whatever job that is, doesn't have to be corporate America. You're doing it because you have to do it, right? Pay the bills. At some point, you want to have the ability to, we always talk about the FU money, right?
Yeah.
Not the amounts. See, I don't need, it'd always be nice to have more, but you want to have money where freedom, and that's what freedom really means to me, is getting to do what I want to do and not have to worry about it. Now, obviously there's all levels, because no matter what level you're at, you can run out of money. I don't care if you make 100 million a year, you can run out of money. There's more than enough stuff to buy. There's more than enough ways to focus on that. Focus on what you need, and that's why, again, not to beat a dead horse. No horses will be hurt on this episode, but
Thank
no, but
goodness.
it's you got to make your own decisions.
Yep.
What type of lifestyle? Because also think about it, and this is the biggest question that I ask for people is really when you're when you're retired, it's the vacation for the rest of your life. So what do you do on vacation? You sometimes spend a lot more money, and that's where the stresses come in, the opportunities. Figure out, and like you said earlier, figure out what you need a month to be comfortable and make it at, you could be $5 a month, man. You own your own property, you're gonna
Yeah.
live off the land. Great, man. That's good. But at some point, you just got to figure it out, and you got to sit down and have those hard conversations with yourself. I'm always a big person talking about you got to start with yourself. You got to make those hard decisions within ourselves to do that.
Yep, I totally agree. And the best time to start with those hard decisions is today. You've all heard the saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yep.
Well, today's today right now, guys, for everybody. Let's make today really count.
Yeah, well, I use that quote all the time here.
Okay, good.
So no, so I love that. I was about to say it, and then you did. I was like, all right.
Sorry, I didn't mean
No, no, no. It's all good, man. It just
to.
it reinforces that it's not just a Dave thing. Well, I
Yeah.
guess maybe it is a
Yeah, I
Dave
guess
thing,
2 days.
but it's not just me. There's so many people. That's why I love bringing people on like yourself. Now we've done a lot of talking. I'd love you to come into my magic garden, and what that means is just do you have one more piece of advice, like a seed that might grow that that people can listen to again, or it might hit them right away, and they start the process today.
Yeah, it is. And this is what I would say. Clear direction beats misdirected speed every time. For 40 years, I was a lot of speed, making money, going fast, but going in circles, going nowhere. Once I got the clear direction, it changed my world dramatically. I mean, dramatically, Dave, to the point where, like I said earlier, I accomplished more in 6 years than I did in the previous 40 years in terms of building wealth. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do. Get the compass. Go to onepagewealthcompass.com/free. I say it's free for a reason. There's no pitch here. I'm not, okay, come on in. Then you can buy my big product. No, there's no big product to buy. There's a little book on Amazon if you want. It's very inexpensive. Okay. But it's not about the money. It's about you taking charge, like you said, Dave, and getting that clear direction because no one's going to save you. When I was 63 and got fired and realized we were 2 years away, there was no one going to come and save me. I had to save myself and I had to get the clear direction to be able to do that. And the sooner you start, the better, but it is never too late. And I truly believe that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all this. This has been very educational, and again, like I said, your story aligns so much with where I'm at and where what I'm doing, and keeping an eye on my compass, making sure that my compass is where I want to be. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure being on your program. Appreciate it.
Thanks. And for everybody else, I hope you have peace and love in your life as your foundation, and including wealth and financial peace and love as well, because that's a big stressor for a lot of people. And when you bring it back, bring some awesome thoughts, think about things that Dave said, and really knock it out of the park. And I hope you hit your sweet spot.